Hi there, and welcome to the inaugural podcast for Mindwhack. I'm Spider Graham. I'm the CEO and founder of Gravity Clamp, and it's my absolute pleasure to be able to work with my partner, Lori Kirksted. Lori, say hello.
Hey, Spider, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited. We finally get a chance to launch this thing. Now, anybody who has ever tried to, start a podcast, it usually takes a little bit of back and forth. Finding somebody you want to work with, so finding someone whose vibe matches your vibe is a good thing to put here. Lori and I have been friends for over 15 years, weirdly, and we'll share our origin story at some point. But Lori, share what you do today for folks who may not know what Content Uncomplicated is.
Sure. I'm the founder of Content Uncomplicated, a content marketing consultancy business. My mission is to get rid of random acts of content. Everybody's doing content. Not everyone knows why they're doing it. And I help people find the why behind every piece, so you can make sure content works for you and you're not working the other way around.
I love that. The concept of random acts of yeah, it's like I need to create something, so here's something, but it has no focus and nobody knows where it goes exactly.
Yep.
And by the way, one of the reasons we're having this conversation is because Lori and I match up on so many fronts. I've worked in the content marketing field for, I don't know, over 20 years easily. Today, my focus is more on how AI aided and driven marketing is really going to help change things in the content marketing in the future. But it's all about content marketing. And at the end of the day, that's really all marketing really is. How can I create a connection between my brand and the people I most want to talk to, right? Because it always comes back to this idea of talk to the right people about the right things and they'll flood you in, right? So one of the frustrations that I have, and I know Lori, you and I have talked about this, is that people oftentimes are doing what they think is the right thing, but they're actually pointing in the wrong direction. They're trying to have conversations with everybody at the same time, and as a result, they end up having conversations with nobody. And so we're going to have some chat today a little bit about some of these things, but just share with me kind of your philosophies. Again, I love this idea of random acts of content. How can, as marketers, how can marketers approach this and say, I don't want to talk to everybody and I don't want to have just random nonsense out there. How can I focus my message to talk to the right people?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of what I've learned has been applying it to my own business, where, especially as an entrepreneur, everybody goes through this. You don't want to leave any money on the table. So you're like, I'm for everybody, which means you're actually for nobody.
Right. That's right. Yeah. It's what they say. A point in every direction is the same as having no point at all. Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what I do for a lot of my clients is, obviously you're talking to an individual person. You've got to have your ideal customer persona, talk to an audience of one that forces you to think, what does this person want? But also, too, the key thing people miss is, how are you going to speak differently about everyone else? It's not enough to say, all right, I'm talking to this person. Great. Everyone else is also talking to them about the exact same thing. How are you going to do it differently to cut through all that?
All right. So this concept of you're bringing something different to the table, each brand is, and that's really kind of your superpower if you think about it. It's an opportunity. How do you stand out from the crowd? What are your core competencies? What can you do for them? But how are you going to do it differently? Which I think is such an important thing for us all to keep in mind when we're doing it. But I love this idea. Again, you're not there to serve everybody. And one of the things that's always made me cringe over the years when I sit down with a client, I say, "Who's your target audience?" And they'll say, "Like everybody." Like, no, it's not everybody. It never is everybody.
Mhm.
It's never going to be everybody. Hate to disappoint you. And so instead, you really have to niche down. And this idea of knowing who your customers are, what their needs are, and how you can address those needs. When you put it on paper, it's not that crazy complicated. It's harder to say I'm going to be everything to everybody. But
Mhm.
even then, when we look at an audience, and let's say we sell a brand, I'll give you an example of a brand that we sell. Let's say I sell running shoes. All right. I'm selling some running shoes. Now, there are a lot of companies out there who are selling running shoes. And the question I would have to ask myself at some point along the way is, who buys running shoes? Now, if I ask this of the marketing team at the running shoe company, they'd probably say people who like to run. And they may not be wrong, but the truth of the matter is that exactly the reason why. And maybe there's someone who's buying the running shoes because they've had foot surgery recently and they want something that's comfortable, right? The bunion's going to need to heal, that kind of thing. And so this is a great thing to help stabilize their feet. Or, maybe they just need something that's really going to help them because they are training for a marathon, or maybe they want something that because they want a great comfortable pair of shoes just to kind of hang around the house. They're not going to run at all, by the way, only when chased, right?
Yep.
And so as a result, why are different people buying these? Maybe some people are buying because they looked awesome. They're colorful. I like them. They're comfortable. I'm not going to run anywhere. And I think it's just important to understand that even within a niche like that, you can narrow it down a little bit more
Yep.
and just identify what are the different personas. And I think, Laura, you put this perfectly. It's this kind of ideal person that is your customer. And if you visualize that person, say, who is the person who buys my stuff? It's this person. But I think there's also an opportunity to say, but it depends on the conversation that I'm having,
Yeah.
right? If I'm talking to this group, maybe there are younger people buying shoes. Maybe there are older people buying shoes. Are the conversations different? They could be, not
Yep.
necessarily, but they could be. Anyway, I think this is an important thing to understand. And this is really the core of a lot of what we do from a content standpoint. Again, it's about getting the right message to the right person at the right time and for the best price. Those are such a big part of what we do. So when we sit down with our customers, it's like, who are you trying to reach? Why? By the way, that's part of the strategic underpinnings of everything we do. Why are
Hmm.
you trying to talk to these people? What is it you need to tell them that they don't already know or that about your brand? And
Yep.
again, that helps you to test if these are the right people.
Yep. Everyone knows what they sell, but not everyone has a clear idea of like the why and the how, which is actually what you're trying to tell in your marketing.
And have you experienced that sometimes as a vendor, people get a little too close to knowing what they sell, that they don't even understand who their audience is anymore?
I mean, when you're talking about value, this whole concept of value and your positioning and your differentiated value, it's like we develop these scripts and these materials, and then as soon as something is sold, it's like check out all these features. It's like where did this alignment come from?
Yeah, wait, that could have come in handy as part of my my informed buying decision. Yes.
Yep.
Well, there are challenges. Now, we've had these conversations, obviously, because you and I have been friends for a long time and kind of comparing notes here. One of the things I find fascinating about this entire process, of course, is that the amount of I don't want to pick on anyone because that's not really what this is about. We want to point out that there are better ways to do things. We're not going to necessarily trash anybody, but every so often we both run across articles that make you just kind of scratch your head, going, "Oh, how is this news?" Right? And I wanted to share one with you again. And this is not, and I'm a big fans of the folks at Media Post, and this is something that they pulled here together. But it says marketing fatigue syndrome. Consumers want relevant messages only. Well, yeah,
Yep.
since the dawn of marketing. The problem is we've done a really poor job of providing a relevant message because for so many years it was about mass marketing, right? We're going out there and saying, let's get the same message in front of as many people as
Yep.
possible, not with
Yep.
the expectation that would magically be relevant, but for the people it's not relevant for, get out of here. We don't care. We want to find just the people who are going to go, oh, yeah, this is about me.
You know what this reminds me of? It's when products are like, this is made with real fruit and real cheese. I'm like, yes, I would hope it would be because it's food,
Hopes. I hope so. I don't want to be shocked with this.
but because there's been so much junk and mistrust, the bare minimum now is like a revelation. It's like, this is what marketing's supposed to be.
Well, and again, knowing who the people are that you're talking to is a big part of it. Again, if I were creating any kind of a campaign, I would have to understand who I'm talking to, what they want to know, and how I can communicate that idea with them.
Yep.
And so much what we're seeing in marketing today, and I know you and I have talked about this, is about relationship building. It's really not about a, hey, yeah, you over there, buy my stuff. It's about, hi, by the way, can I share something that hopefully you're going to find interesting and relevant to your personal needs? And let's start a conversation. I want you to know what my brand can do to make your life better. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's kind of the relationship brands are trying to build with consumers or have been. But for so many years, it's felt like a predator prey relationship where we're just kind of hiding behind the bushes, waiting for them to come by so we can pounce on them going, hey, yeah, you're a consumer, buy my stuff.
Yep.
That's not necessarily your target.
Not at all. I mean, this whole thing is about relationships, as you said. And even in companies that are highly transactional, you might not think you need the relationship. Everybody does. At the end of the day, and you say this all the time, we're still selling to people, no matter how much AI or tech gets thrown in here. We all have our weird little human brains and weird motivations, you know?
And what's your thoughts on the difference between B2C selling and B2B selling on that front?
I mean, I don't really think there is a huge difference fundamentally with you're talking to people. There are different systems in place. There's different stakeholders, higher ticket items, but I mean, you're still selling to people.
people being people being people, right? So you still have to build that relationship. You still have to have some sort of a value proposition to share with those people, regardless of whether it's B2B or B2C.
Do you know why I say that though? Because I actually remember there was a professor at Emerson who asked us one time, who was like, what's the difference? And everyone was having those canned responses like, well, you have to have this tone with B2B. And B2C is really different. It's consumer. It's like, it's not. It's not. It's different context, but you're still talking to an individual person at the end of the day.
No, and I think that's, and again, knowing what that person is. And by the way, I think it's important to point out that if I'm a consumer and I'm buying something for myself or my family, and it turns out I don't like what I bought, or I feel some sort of regret later, that's on me. Maybe my family, like, you bought the worst food and we hated it. You get over it, right? If you're a B2B buyer and you make a big mistake because you didn't do your due diligence, or
Mhm.
it could mean time to update your resume. I mean, there's a little bit of a different impact in this.
That's something that a lot of people, when they get into management and have control of budgets, find out the hard way. I do
So,
that all the time. Joint effort between content side and the web development side,
well,
and wires crossed, whatever, but 30,000 spent really quickly, and then fingers
yeah,
get
yeah. It's not hard to spend a lot of money real fast when you're working in
hard.
business. By the way, yeah, not hard at all.
Yep.
And yeah, again, if you're pointing in the wrong direction. And by the way, back in the early days when I first started doing any kind of marketing, when I was running my first business, we spent $10,000 in the most poorly planned way possible. And I've often said it was the best tuition I ever spent in my life, because I learned so much doing such a horrible job and reaching the absolute wrong people. And not, I don't think there was an ROI model involved anywhere in here. But we're running ads. That's what you're supposed to do when you're an advertiser. And we did. We ran ads. Did the right people see them? Yeah, maybe
Do
not, maybe not.
you do you remember the first time you ever were tasked with spending a large amount of money for a business
Yeah,
and you had that, "Oh my god," sort of concept of, "Don't screw it up." It was
yeah.
more money than was my salary, and all of a sudden, as, like, a tiny baby manager trying to figure out where I didn't even know how to spend my own personal finances, let alone a business, but, you fake it till you make it, and now it's like I can spend millions in a budget and not bat an
Yeah,
eye.
well, I bought a private branch exchange for a company once, basically a telephone system. I bought a new one. And yeah, I think there were times when you're like, did I do the right thing? And you kind of have to work your way through the growing pains. I mean, there's always going to be challenges, and not everything we're going to do hopefully is going to be a horrible failure. But I'm just saying that
Yeah,
when we put ourselves in this position, and I think you're absolutely on point here, is that there are concerns that go beyond the fact that, is this expensive or not expensive? It's going to be, am I going to make the wrong decision? Am I going to have buyer's remorse, which is huge in a B2B marketplace as opposed to B2C, at least huger.
user. Mhm.
But anyway, the point, I think, at the end of the day, getting back to this article we're staring at here, of course we want relevant content to come down the pipe. What's the point of me looking at another ad for women's high heel shoes that I have no intention of buying? And by the way, in a reach and frequency model, well, let's just hit them 5 more times and then no, you won't. I'm never, ever going to be in the market for something I'm not in the market
Yep.
for whatever reason. So it doesn't matter how many times you show me or how great your ad is. I'm not the guy. And
Nope.
that's an important thing for people to understand. Now, Lori, you also had an article that you wanted to share, I believe. Let's see if I
Yes, I
have it
do.
here. Let me pop that up here and talk to me about what your thoughts are on this.
All right, this is interesting. It says AI will kill generic content marketing and usher in a new age of POV content. And then down here it says the age of generic SEO driven how to posts are numbered thanks to the coming deluge of AI content. There's truth in this, but I'm wondering, what does this have to do with AI content? That seems like an
Well,
added layer.
we put AI in the headline because it's clickbait right now. And as the AI guy here, I can tell you that maybe, just maybe, AI will, I don't know, maybe create more generic content. What are your thoughts?
And here's the thing, like I actually was on a really long LinkedIn thread about this, but someone said the same thing, like we do not need any more how-to content at the highest level. For the most part, I agree because a lot of it has been stated and you're just putting something else out there that really doesn't have any value. But if you're in a market that, for example, I come from ed tech, and with the pandemic and the reading crisis, everyone was defining the science of reading differently. So
Right.
you had to put a stake in the ground and say, this is what it is, and this is the implications and all that, right? So that's fine. Like, we don't need any more how to. What we need is the so what. What's the next level of that conversation?
Which is our strategy conversation,
Exactly.
and the same thing with coding, any kind of technology we've had at our fingertips throughout the past couple decades. It's not just a matter we have this tool. It's like, why should we use this tool? What can it do for us? And again, it goes back to that conversation we have. Who are we trying to reach? What do we want to say to them? And is this the right tool to do it?
Yep.
And by the way, the conversations I had in the past, like I had one years ago, like yeah, we want to have Twitter. Well, I can set you up. We can make a Twitter account happen, but I'm going to ask you the important question as a strategist. Why? What are you going to do with Twitter?
Why?
We,
Yep.
well, and the guy said, well, we want to send tweets. And I'm like, well, a very popular choice for Twitter. But my question is, who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to move the needle? Is what we want to be able to ascertain here. And again, AI is not necessarily going to kill generic content in my thinking, unless that's what people are using the tool for. If they say, I'm going to go and find a targeted way of getting content out there, how many people are just going to say, oh, I got a content building machine, push a button, and it's just going to spew out random generic, not caring stuff? Again, the tool is not the thing that we're focused on. It's the person who's using the tool to come to some sort of conclusion.
100%. And in this regard here, this also talks about like SEO driven how to post. Like, I think the SEO is a really interesting point too, because
Absolutely.
I understand why we have search intent. And you would hope if I'm typing in my Google query, the first or second is going to answer that. I find a lot of the time it doesn't. So that's when I actually will go to my AI, and it won't hyperlink it, but that's another source of information. So now I have two sources to find what I need. And when we're talking about like the difference between I want to rank number one and I actually want to provide valuable content, they should be the same thing, but they're not always.
No, and by the way, we're going to probably in a future podcast have to really broach the SEO aspects of this, because I think we're going to see a huge change. And again, to your point, just because I seeded my website with lots and lots of keywords, so I rank number one, doesn't mean I'm the best choice for somebody to answer their questions. It just means that I got myself out there in front of as many people as possible. But it really, it's like putting a billboard by the side of the highway. It doesn't mean that everyone driving by is going to need what I'm offering on the billboard. But yeah, I'm out there and people can see me.
Yep. And in fact, if I am clicking on something that essentially is clickbait, I get enraged that
Yeah.
I am looking through stuff that I'm like, this isn't what I'm looking for, search intent.
Yeah. And again, so if you're just trying to get impressions and trying to get you're not really getting my attention. And I think, and again, there's a lot to be said for what we call emotional affinity, right? If what you've done is irritate me, then guess what? Maybe this is not the best relationship between a brand and a consumer. Like, yeah, I saw your stuff. You kind of annoyed me, and maybe we won't be doing business together in the future.
But the other thing I wanted to mention here was the POV content. And they're right, because when there is so much generic content being cranked out, it's going to make the people who understand how to capture unique voice and tone and provide that value, it's going to make them that much more valuable. It I look at it like everyone can buy equipment and make music at home. Like, all of these tools are widely available. There's a lot of junk on SoundCloud that you can just sift through.
Yeah.
But the people who shine through are the ones that have that story, that unique sound. I think it might make it harder in some regards to stand out because there's more competition. But if they're not doing a good job, that's an opportunity for you.
And by the way, what a great way to put it, because I mean, one of the things we've learned about opportunity or people looking basically for challenges.
Yeah.
I'm looking for something that's not working and thinking about what can I do to actually insert myself into that disaster area and find a way to make it better, make it more smooth. And you're absolutely right about that. And one of the things I'm so excited about what we're seeing with the changes in technology, and apart from we're all going to die because of AI broadcasts that people are putting out there. At the end of the day, it's still a tool. Is there an opportunity for misuse of these tools? 100%.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean everyone who's using them is going to be misusing them. And like anything else, you get your yin and your yang. And I think you and I have talked about the fact that I can take a hammer, which I own, and I can go and use it to build a dog house for my dog. I can take the same exact hammer and I can use it to beat my dog. Hammer doesn't care. And so it really is my intent and what I'm doing and what my objective is. And I
Yeah.
think, again, if we're using AI as a tool to help us do a better job of reaching the right people with the right message, then there's going to be less generic content, because that's kind of how we're approaching this. And if what we're doing is like, I can now write a book by pushing a button, dude, you run a book that sounds like every other AI generated book. Like, frankly, it's got a stick up its butt.
Yep.
And it's not going to take long before people are going to say, I want to read a book that actually sounds like a human being wrote it, because I
Yep.
can tell the difference. I'm a human being.
I feel like even with everything that changes in our society and in the markets, like everything was tiny bookstores, Amazon killed them all, but now we want little bookstores again because we want the human element. Everything is like a pendulum. Look at all this tech, but where's the human element? And isn't that what life is balance? At the end of the day, tech can and does make our lives better, but we are humans who are using that as a tool.
Well, and this might be part of a longer conversation, but one of the things I've also thought about is the ubiquity of fill in the blank,
Yep.
right? So once upon a time, malls were kind of touted as being perfect models, because no matter where you went, you found the same things. You had your anchor stores, but you went in, there was that Orange Julius. By the way, the only place you could find an Orange Julius was in the mall, but they
Yep.
were all in all the malls. So whenever I went to a mall, there's an orange. Whoever said, you know what, I'm really missing in my life, an Orange Julius, and I need a hot dog while I'm here too. But the point simply is, this ubiquity may have worked for a lot of people, but I think today we're seeing kind of maybe a backslide or a pendulum swing, where a lot of the folks don't want the same old, same old. They want a bespoke experience. They want something that is unique and interesting and different. I
Mm.
don't want the same fast food restaurant over and over again. I want this kind of weird boutique thing, which is doing something nobody else has done. Mexican Chinese fusion, just do that.
Yep.
We're going to have different people doing different things. And I think this is such an important thing for us to just consider, that the uniqueness of the individual is what's going to drive this forward, what their needs are.
Yes. And that's one thing that I keep reading about, is that, at least not yet, AI cannot account for the human experience. Like what makes us, which who knows what that is, but I'm just making
So sometimes I'm sure it's pretty shameful, but yeah. But no, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's this idea of who are we? And then again, what do I want? And think about just something simple. I grab the remote control, I turn on the TV, and I do this. No, 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 no. And what's my criteria to determine what I watch and what I don't watch? I'm going like, oh, I'll watch this, right? But that's personal. That's me.
Yep.
And it has nothing to do with the broadcasting. It has nothing to do with anything else other than, what do I want to see? What do I want to eat? What are the types of possessions I want to have in my home? Have you ever gone to somebody else's home and felt just a little bit critical about the crap that they have, that you're like, I would never own that. And yet here they have it on display,
It's not for me.
Not for me, not for
Yeah.
me.
Yep.
So, well, as always, you're such a delight, and you and I have so much fun kind of, planning the world out here as it is. This is a fun process, and I look forward to being able to do future broadcasts with you. I think from a podcasting standpoint, a meeting of the minds, and there's so many different ways that we can go down this rabbit hole, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited. I think, as you said, this is the inaugural episode. It's our first pancake episode.
So, if anyone's seeing this, this means you dug into the archives very deeply, because and by the way, congratulations and thank you. You're the one who saw this one, apart from us and maybe our loved ones.
Right? But like we keep talking about, right? It's a first pancake, fine. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. There's going to be some growing pains, but we're doing it. Just get on, broadcast, and put something out there. Then we're doing
That's right.
it.
Just hit record and make it happen. So congratulations, Lori. We hit record and we made it happen. As always, you're a delight. Thank you for being a remarkable human being, and my pleasure to be able to spend some time with you.
Same with you.
Let's do this again next week. I think we have some good ideas to come up with, and again, we're going to be broaching the topics of how can you make your content marketing more effective going forward. That's why we're here.
All right, can't wait. I'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks so much. And by the way, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to the inaugural podcast for Mindwhack. We're excited to be here, and there'll be more in the future. We'll talk to you then.